In a previous video, I explained how the laws of the United States are not based on the Ten Commandments. In response, some fundamentalist Christians have insisted we at least should base our laws on them. But would that really be wise? Let's take a look at what life might be like if we actually did make our laws based on the Ten Commandments and tried to live by them. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. If we followed this commandment, you could throw freedom of religion right out the window. We would all be required by law to follow the Judeo-Christian God. Buddhism, Hinduism, Shintoism, Wiccanism, spiritualism, atheism, and all the other belief systems followed by Americans would be illegal. That would mean up to a quarter of us could be prosecuted for our beliefs, and we would lose a fundamental freedom guaranteed by our Bill of Rights. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything. Most scholars say this refers only to creating icons to worship, but it still could cause problems for sects that worship images of Jesus and Mary, like the Catholics and Orthodox Church. Indeed, they have been attacked by other Christians for just such reasons. Jehovah's Witnesses and traditional Jews even consider empty crosses to be violations of the Second Commandment. Worse, some Christian sects, Mennonites and Amish among them, interpret the commandment to include all representative art, believing that the prohibition against making a likeness of anything and the worshipping of that likeness to be two separate demands. Thus, laws based on this commandment could result in the destruction of all art, except for perhaps the purely abstract. Think of the impact this would have on society. No more pictures, no more photographs, no more movies. Even churches would have to get rid of their paintings, frescoes, statues, and stained glass windows. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. Although many people believe this commandment refers to using the word God when swearing at someone, most theologians consider it to mean one must not break any contract or oath that was sworn in the name of God. Quite a different meaning. Interestingly, laws based directly on this commandment would not prohibit swearing. So not much of an effect on society there, although it would conflict with our right to freedom of speech. Remember the Sabbath day, to keep it holy. The Sabbath was changed from Saturday to Sunday by the Roman Emperor Constantine, who wasn't even a Christian at the time, so laws based on this commandment would likely make Saturday the day of rest. While this is a change most people would likely adapt to fairly easily, less pleasant would be what we would be required to do each Saturday. The Sabbath wasn't intended as a day of rest to benefit the people, but for the veneration of God, and not just for a couple of hours either, but for the entire day. That would mean no play at all, no TV, no computer games, no movies, no shopping, just worship. Furthermore, Orthodox Jews take the thou shalt not do any work part seriously enough to not even allow the preparation of meals. How does that sound as a way to spend your Saturdays? Awesome. Another possible consequence of laws based on this commandment would be a required 6-day work week. Depending on how you interpret, 6 days shalt thou labor. Honor thy father and thy mother. This commandment may sound like a nice idea in general, but the fact that it's an unconditional commandment makes it pretty absolute. Thus, laws based on this commandment could require a child to honor a parent who rapes, beats, tortures, or otherwise abuses the child. It would mean putting up with that abuse, not reporting it to the authorities, and acceding to the parents' wishes. Millions of children could be physically, mentally, and emotionally damaged for life as a consequence. Thou shalt not kill. While this commandment sounds pretty straightforward, it's actually quite confusing. Clearly it doesn't mean no killing at all, since one cannot survive without killing something, for food if nothing else. And it can't mean no killing of humans at all, since throughout the Bible God orders people to kill others. So most people consider it a mistranslation, and that the word kill should actually be murder. which is defined as unlawful killing. But that's a problem too, because it would make the commandment redundant. Think about it. Thou shalt not kill someone in a manner that's against the law is a law that says don't do something unlawful. What's the point of a law that says obey the law? It's meaningless. I suspect any laws based on this commandment would just use the current definition of murder, since it's the most workable meaning and it's already used in all societies. But the commandment is confusing and just begs for clarification, since it obviously can't mean what it actually says. Some Christian pacifists, like Martin Luther King Jr., interpret the commandment as forbidding violence of any kind against others, citing that Jesus Christ himself was a pacifist. Thus, laws based on this commandment could make all killing illegal, even in self-defense, unless apparently it's directly ordered by God. Thou shalt not commit adultery. While this commandment may seem quite straightforward, it's actually not. The ancient Hebrews considered adultery to be sex with a woman married to someone else. Since women were regarded as little more than property, adultery was essentially the misuse of another man's property. Having sex with an unmarried woman, however, was not considered adultery. So any laws based on this commandment would make it illegal for married women to have sex with other men, but it would not be illegal for men, married or otherwise, to have sex with unmarried women. I suspect most of the 60 million married women in the United States might have something to say about that. Thou shalt not steal. The Talmudic interpretation of this commandment as thou shalt not kidnap has led some theologians to believe this commandment was only meant to apply to unjustly abducting people, which was considered as serious an offense as murder and adultery, while regular theft was not. But either way, making laws based on this commandment would likely have little impact on our society because such laws already exist in every society. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Bearing false witness appears to have originally referred to lying in a court of law, not against lying in general. Again, all societies already have laws against this, so that much of the commandment wouldn't have much of an impact on us. However, the against thy neighbor part could have a major impact. After all, what is a neighbor? Someone who lives on your street? In your town? On your continent? There would be no point in adding against thy neighbor if the commandment was meant to be applied to everyone, would it? Thus it logically follows that it must be okay to lie about non-neighbors. So laws based on this commandment could not make it illegal to lie in a court of law against people who aren't considered your neighbors, however that's defined. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's possessions. As you may guess, the problematic word here is covet. Does it mean any form of desire or just excessive desire? If the latter, how do you measure excessive? And what kind of laws could enforce not coveting your neighbor's possessions? Arrest anyone who says something like, "Gee, I wish I had an iPhone like yours." Ticket window shoppers? Force people to sign statements that the items they're buying are things they're only mildly interested in? And there's that word neighbor again. Does that mean it's okay to covet the possessions of non-neighbors? If so, we should be eternally thankful for the internet. Also problematic is that some translations of the commandment use the term slaves instead of manservant and maidservant, since slavery was legal in biblical times, and the term is more fitting with the concept of coveting the possessions of others. Thus, laws based on this commandment could justify legalizing slavery. That's all 10 commandments, at least the list most Christians recognize. So let's recap what life could be like if our laws were based on them. Required worship of the Judeo-Christian God only. No representative art of any kind. No breaking oaths sworn in the name of God. 6-day work weeks. No work or play of any kind on the Sabbath, only worship. No resisting or reporting an abusive parent. No self-defense. No sex with another's wife, although sex between a married man and an unmarried woman is fine. No kidnapping. No lying in a court of law except against non-neighbors. No buying anything you really want. Of course, if we were to make our laws based on the Ten Commandments, it would follow that we make the punishments based on them as well, wouldn't it? So what were the penalties for breaking the Ten Commandments? Well, for most of them, it was death. So ask yourself, do you really want to live in a country where the laws are based on the Ten Commandments? Or would you rather live in a country not beholden to the individual interpretation of religious scriptures by one religious sect or another, just like our founding fathers intended?